Three, two, one. Oh, I'm supposed to do that before I hit the record button. Good morning, Mr. Freeman.
Good morning, sir. How the heck are you?
I am really good.
You look fantastic this morning.
Thank you. It's the lights and the makeup. My stylist left, did my hair, got me rosy cheeked. Doesn't everybody do hair and makeup for a podcast?
I spent hours this morning. I just want you to know.
You look fabulous, my friend. He's Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We're the
Good morning, gentlemen,
Council.
ladies.
I'm intrigued by something you said in our last show, and I took note of it. So because I just resonated with it a lot, and we were talking about we were answering one of the gentleman's questions where he and his wife and his daughter, so there's the three of them, teenage daughter, and the mother and the daughter are at loggerheads. They're at odds with one another, and you could imagine what that might manifest itself as, shouting, yelling, you bitch, no, you bitch, you whatever that is, right? And
it probably isn't quite that. It's probably the daughter going.
Well, I was immediately reminded of my next door neighbor, who is now in college, but when she was in high school, there were some knockdown, drag out screaming matches between her and mom. And I get that. And, I raised a couple of kids, and I've got a couple of grandkids, same age. And I gave an answer, which I learned later would have contributed to the problem. So I took a little lesson away from that. We talked about the trauma triangle, and I want to spend a little time with that. But you said your response really hit me when you said that we want our children to rebel. They need to learn how to stand up to authority so that when they leave, they are able to stand up to authority in situations where there is someone exerting power. The example you gave was when she goes to college, there's a very good chance someone will try to rape her. And if she has this experience of being able to stand up to someone stronger, stand up for herself, there's a good chance she'll be able to protect herself. So that was
way before anything would happen.
Yeah, and that was maybe 3 minutes out of an hour, but it has stuck with me this whole time, and I've been thinking about it. And I would love to spend our time together understanding both of those things. One, why it's important, and that maybe a third part, because I was talking to someone and they said, oh, there are some 50-year-olds that are still acting like 16-year-olds.
Exactly.
Right. So Doc, with that as the setup, I'd love you to take that any way you like.
Perfect. You just said there's some 50-year-olds that still act like teenagers. Kimberly and I were having a discussion this morning about some people we know who are 50 and acting like teenagers. Well, let me start off with the thing that really affected me this week, between last week and this week. And at first I went, really? And then I looked into it. And I very clearly remember the discussion we had with the gentleman, the father, who clearly cared about his wife and daughter very deeply, loved them both very deeply. And I did use the sort of example of, people need to learn how to say no so they don't get raped in college or date raped or even messed with. The CDC came out this week with every 2 years they do a major survey of teens. And in the last 2 years, the incidences of suicide have tripled. The incidences of assault have gone up 1.5 times. But one of the statistics in there there were two statistics that affected me the most. One is that 14% of teenage girls have been raped, report being raped. That's, to me, astounding. That's basically 3 out of every 20 girls. 1.5 out of every 10 girls, but not dividing people into halves. But that's astounding. That means if you go into a classroom in high school and there's 30 kids in there, you know, let's say there's 20 girls in there, 3 of them have been raped. That's astounding. And the figures of sexually harassed are in the 45 to 50%. So one of the things, there's 2 things that need to happen. One, in this case, girls really do need to know how to say no and stand up for themselves, et cetera, et cetera. But the other one is that the boys need to learn how to have boundaries, which, interestingly enough, boundaries also come from healthy rebellion. So I want to set the stage for what I'm going to talk about with those pieces of information. So let me do a 5-minute gig here. And what I'm really talking about, and this is a developmental model that, frankly, I put together years ago when I was teaching, and I've taught this model throughout many, many places in the world, like 12 different countries and all over the US. And what I want to talk about right now is adolescence and the process of adolescence. And most people don't really understand adolescence. The overview of adolescence is somewhere between 10 and 13, we begin to have a change happening in our brain that allows us to have abstract thought. That's one of the big shifts from childhood into adolescence. And abstract thought basically means that we can think about what we don't see, feel, touch, and hear. Like if you ask a 6-year-old what's freedom, they'll go, did I get to go outside? If you ask a 14-year-old what is freedom, you'll get a dissertation, and then you'll get told how unfree they are, appropriately so. And then the other piece is that hormones kick in. So in some ways, adolescence is similar to the terrible twos because there's so much of saying no. So there are some people, actually, Foster Klein, who like 40 some years ago was my clinical director. He used to say that adolescence is 2 with hormones and abstract thought. So, but let me dive deeper into that piece. Up until the beginning of adolescence, we have what's called a belief system. And now, before I say this semantics could be argued in this, and I know that. And so I'm going to define the words I'm using the way that I'm using them. A belief system is, in this context, is a system that of behavior and how we behave and what guides our life because we have been told certain things. So essentially, it's we believe what we've been told.
Okay.
if our parents or society or church or school or whatever tell us blank, we go, oh, okay, we believe that. And especially the younger we are, the more we believe it. What adolescence is about, the process of adolescence is about beginning to form a value system versus a belief system. And what I mean by that is that the job of an adolescent is essentially sort of to regurgitate whatever they've been told, whatever they believe, and take a look at it and determine what out of all of those beliefs, what they want to keep and what they want to discard. And so we keep what we value. And that's why I call it the process of putting together a value system. It's also why when you say that, yeah, there are 50-year-olds that are like adolescents, well, it's true, because many people have not done that process. They've not sort of regurgitated all the beliefs and looked at them and, in a discerning way, take in what they value and let go of what they don't value. And
Is this a is this a conscious activity?
yes, if that process is supported by parents.
Okay.
And this is where the rebellion that we sort of initially talked about comes in, is what we want our children, the way that we so let me say it even more succinctly. It's a conscious activity unless it's repressed by schools, sometimes churches, parents, family systems in general, all of those kinds of things. And part of what, so the answer to your question is yes. And here's what's interesting. If parents have not gone through adolescence themselves the way they need to, because many adults have never done that, if I've not gone through that, I'll stop my kid from going through it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I you know me, I'm always got a visual. I have to visualize the thing.
Yeah, I can see.
And I could see, and I love this idea of abstract thought, because I'm sitting in front of a table looking at all of my beliefs in the various domains, beliefs about school and work and family and life and God and divinity. They're all little gem rocks, or maybe they're rocks.
Totally.
Right there, that I can hold on to them. They're solid beliefs. Okay, so the rock metaphor probably works pretty well. And I can, if I again metaphorically can pick up each one and look at it and say, I can choose, is this rock valuable to me? At which point it turns into a gem. Again, I'm making this
very nice. I like that.
It turns into a gem, and I'm going to keep it because it has value. It is valuable. It becomes one of my values. And this gem now is, I like that. And it may be the case that, gosh, this one about religion, I like most of this stuff, but there's some of the bits I'm going to have to, let's stay with the gem thing.
Like chip it off. Yeah,
exactly. Some of that bits I don't really like, but the core idea of it, I like.
Yes,
keep that.
You are totally on track with that. That metaphor is perfect.
Great, perfect.
So here's, and it, as an adult, we can do that we just do that if we allow ourselves to do that. As an adolescent, the way that we do that, and the main people that we need to push against on the belief systems, are generally our parents. In adolescence, that process of going, I don't believe this, I do believe that, I don't like this part, I'm going to take in this value. That process comes through a process of rebellion. Now, let me talk about rebellion real quick. There's two levels of rebellion. One is what I call healthy rebellion, and one is unhealthy rebellion. For rebellion in a family to really happen, there has to be consequences. Consequences, and I've talked about this in other arenas, consequences are different than punishments. A punishment is meant to shut something down. A consequence is meant to delve into something, whatever that is, and deal with it. So let me define healthy and unhealthy rebellion. Healthy rebellion has consequences to it that last less than a year. So let's say somebody shoplifts a package of gum and gets caught, and they get put on probation for 3 months. It's like, that's not going to affect somebody's life in a horrible way. At Thanksgiving, when they're 29 years old, everyone's going to laugh about, do you remember when you took that gum? Rebellion that looks like rebellion that has lifelong consequences isn't actually rebellion that has to do with adolescence. If there's rebellion that has lifelong consequences to it, it's actually flips people back into attachment. So right now, I just want to define those two, and I'm not going to really delve into the whole piece around what attachment is about. This is not a long enough podcast to do it. We can jump into that in another one. But, people who overuse drugs or are highly, highly promiscuous sexually, or people literally who put themselves either sexually assault somebody or put themselves in situations where they can be assaulted. And please nobody take that wrong. I don't think that people set themselves up to be assaulted. There are precautions that we can take that will help us not be assaulted. There's a difference between if you're speeding in a 30-mile-an-hour zone and you're going 40 miles an hour, or if you're going 100 miles an hour. Those are two different gigs. Make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
An example of a rebellion that actually with lifelong consequences. This was a number of years ago. A client was stoned and drunk, and he was 17. He was driving home and passed out at the wheel and ran into another car and killed 2 people. That's not healthy rebellion. Getting stoned and, staying out all night and your parents going, where are you? It's a different story. The part of what needs to happen is that parents, when a kid rebels in a healthy way, parents have to come in and give them something to push against without losing their temper. And this is the big thing. So, and let me give you, this is a little bit of an example. Like, there's a 13-year-old girl that, now she's probably in her mid-40s, but every time she would come in to see me, her hair would be orange on one side and purple on the top, and then this side would be shaved. And then she'd have on all these weird clothes, and I would go, oh my God, every time she walked in my house, what are you doing? And she would laugh and giggle, and then the next week she would come in and she would be totally different. It would be, and what the black parts were purple, and she'd have on other weird clothes, and I'd go, oh my God, again. And it was like, kids need something to push up against. Or, if they do shoplift, it's like, yeah, this is not a good thing. And they need the boundaries, and they need something to push up against without being told they're a horrible human being. And this goes back to some earlier developmental stuff. It's like your behavior is really not good and you're grounded for 2 weeks or whatever it is. But it's like, and, but it doesn't mean they're a bad human being on the face of the earth. It just means your behavior sucks right now. You don't get to do that. It's that kind of stuff. And, or arguments about religion. Like a kid comes in and goes, I'm not going to church anymore. And there's a difference between saying you absolutely have to go to church and saying, tell me what's going on. Well, I don't believe in God the way that you believe, and literally having a debate about it, for instance. And or you know, same thing with drugs. If somebody comes in, like I've seen so many parents, especially probably more in Colorado, well, since I live in Colorado, it's like they sit down, they get stoned with their kid. And then they wonder, and there's no pushback on it. It's like, you don't get stoned and be in my house. And versus there's a difference between going, well, let's get stoned. And it's like, okay. And, you know, and you can bring your boyfriend or girlfriend over and we'll all sit on the couch and get stoned. All that does is that ups the ante to, because kids are going to push for something to get pushed back against. So if you're not pushing back against, you know, one drink or getting stoned, then they're going to raise the stakes until they get pushed back against.
It doesn't qualify as a rebellion.
Yeah, it doesn't qualify as rebellion. And it's like,
is rebellion the chipping?
Rebellion is a chipping. It's like, I don't like this. Well, I have a right to get stoned. I have a right to stay out past midnight. I have a right. And it's like, actually, no, you don't. And the way that we keep kids in that realm of rebellion is for us to be able to separate their behavior from who they are as a person. And it's like, yeah, you know, if, you know, like, or this is a true example of, and I was working with a woman, an adult woman, who, when she would answer the phone when she was a teenager, like if a boy called, her father would call her a slut.
Oh.
And it's like, that's not allowing somebody to figure out who they are. All that is going to do is send them into hiding and send them into shame and send them, versus going, when you answer the phone with a boy, I want you to answer the phone the same way you would answer it with me. See the difference?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like, one is, let's work with your behavior. Let's work with being grounded. Let's work with, and it's like, because if we don't allow our children when in their teens to learn to push back and to learn to say no, and to learn to say, well, I'm a sovereign being, and to learn to say, these are my values, those are the kids, both boys and girls, that end up in situations that are truly not good for them.
So
And
what was going through my mind is I don't remember taking this class as a young adult, as a young parent.
I believe that. I'm not sure very many people took this class. And I'm not sure. And let me add one other thing. Then let me come back to what you just said, Mark. When I first started talking about the stats of the 14% of teenage girls get raped, And then I think it was 47%. I would have to go back and double check this one. The first one I'm sure about. I think it was 47% of girls got pressured into sex, and like 90% got harassed sexually. There is a place in here where boys will try to get away with whatever they can get away with, and there has to be a place where parents, both parents, and particularly men, come in and say, you just don't get to treat a woman that way. You just don't get to treat a girl that way. It just is, it won't happen in my house. And that's got to start really early, but that also comes from how a man treats his wife. Yeah.
On the nose.
And and so raising the stakes, and as a parent, and having the boundaries to let somebody push against you is so important. And part of what I think probably, I mean, I know you pretty well, it's like there's an innate sense that we have around teaching. And what my guess is that you did teach your children pretty well. Had you had this quote class, you would have maybe done it more smoothly. You maybe would have done it more consciously and intentionally. But many people, many parents do this actually pretty well. And when our kids push back against us, there are two things that we need to keep in mind when we push back against them. Is one is, and this is even in couples work, one is when I push back, I want to push back with the idea that the relationship between me and whomever I'm pushing back against will be preserved.
Yeah. So there's resilience.
Yes. And two is I want to push back in a way that creates an opening for the other person to be heard.
So in that, and let me get, so I'm going to push back in a way for the other person to be heard. So if the child is pushing back against the parent, the child wants to create an opening to be able to hear the parent, or the parent wants
the parent needs to create an opening to hear the kid.
Right. That's what I thought. Okay, got it.
Right.
So that the act of the parent being an authoritarian against the behavior, not the person, is to create a chance for them to talk about it and say, is this the part of the rock you want to chip off or not?
Yeah. Right. So let me give you a couple examples. And I do this all the time working with kids. Like if a kid says to me, fuck you, I have a choice of going, you never get to say that to me. I have a choice of saying, who do you think you are? I have all those kind of choices. Or I can make the choice of going, and I'm making a name up, Joey, you can say fuck you to me if you make eye contact with me. You have to make contact with me and look me straight in the eye. If you're going to say it, you got to say it that way.
Wow.
And the kid goes,
whoa.
Oh, maybe I don't want to do that. And I'll say, so, and some kids will do it. And I'll say, good, do that again.
So was that a short-term consequence?
Yeah.
Really short-term, like
it's a boundary.
Yeah.
You don't get to look at the ground and go, fuck you, dude. It's like, you can say fuck you to me. You have every right to do that right now. You have to look at me. And the kid goes, oh, Okay. And if a kid does look at me and say it, it changes everything. It's like, okay, say it again. Fuck you. And then the second time they sort of go, well, fuck you. And the third time they're going. And then that leads to me being able to go, what's the fuck you about? What is this? Tell me about this.
That's the opening.
That's the opening. I will also say to kids, and it's like they want to come in and debate. And I'll literally look at them and I say, are we going to get in an argument? And the kid will go, well, maybe not. Or, and if they say, maybe not, I go, so what is it do you want to say? And if they go, yeah, we are, I say, great. I just want to be prepared. Go. And the kid goes, whatever they have to say. But then it doesn't really become an argument. It turns into sometimes a debate, sometimes a discussion, but it's like
you've bled off the emotion.
I bled off. It's like I have said, it's okay that you rebel. I just want to know if that's what we're doing. And there are times where, and this is around really intense stuff, I'll say, are we going to get in an argument? And the kid will go, yeah. And if it's about, and again, I'm just using examples. If it's about how the kid cuts their hair, I could fine, let's argue about it. If it's about something that's dangerous that would literally lead into a long-term consequence, I'll say, it's okay if we get in an argument. I want you to know I'm going to win. because it's not okay with me if you drink and drive.
Right.
I'm going to win this one. You need to know that. But it's a boundary, but it's not, I'm not creating shame. I'm not creating, and because when we create shame in this process, what happens is that people either shut down, which will later lead to them shutting down when someone pushes against them. Well, I should please this person. I should go back to this guy's place. I should drive fast. I should, or it'll create an incredible amount of anger. And then that leads to places that we don't want to go.
Talk about shame for just a second.
Okay. Many people talk about shame in many different ways. In my world, shame is about the process of, sort of probably easier to give an example of, if I make a mistake or if I don't do something well, it's not about the behavior. It means if I make a mistake, it's not that I made a mistake, it's that I am a mistake. Like let's say, I mean, we do a lot of stuff around storytelling. Let's say I try and put a story together and it's not very good, which has happened when I'm first learning.
All the time. Yeah.
And it's like, did I just miss the point with the story, or am I like a bad storyteller? Did I not get the steps down, or am I just a piece of shit person that can't
do anything right? Yeah.
They can't do anything right. Shame is that place where instead of looking at something from you got it out of sequence, Dewey, try it again. I love you, I care about you, try it again. And it's literally that separation of personhood and behavior is what stops shame. And actually, in my relationship with Kimberly, we'll often go, if something's tough, it's like, sweetie, I want you to know I love you. And so you and I have talked about the yes and many times. I want you to know I love you. And you just tracked mud all over the house. Or you tracked horse manure all over the house. It's like, oh. Versus going, what, were you fucking born in a barn? You can't get your goddamn shoes cleaned off? It's like, there's a huge difference. And part of what we need to really be able to do is move into behavior's just behavior. And
so let me take this into a bit of a call to action for moms and
I love
dads.
it when you do this. Keep going. You're so on the right track.
It's my job.
Yeah. Well,
It's my job.
You do it well.
Thank you. Is the next, so if you're living in a household with teenagers, this is going to happen in the next 48 hours.
Maybe the next 48 minutes.
Maybe the next 48 minutes. It is going to happen. So I think the first step would be recognizing, oh, this is happening right now, and attack the behavior, not the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not even attack it, push back on, attack's probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
Push back on the behavior, right? Yeah. And what's interesting is the authority has a belief that the behavior is wrong. The child is saying, probably testing, how wrong is it? How wrong is it? Right? Is it this wrong, or is it this wrong? Is it, I'm just coloring my hair? How wrong is that? Not wrong enough. It's not that bad, right?
Right.
I think that's probably, I'm thinking more of the kind of behavior we're hearing way too much about it is gun violence, perpetrated by young men, typically teenage men, right? Which is probably another show to do, but because I'm thinking more of the 16-year-old girl, why can't I go out, or why am I in trouble for being late, or whatever the transgression was. There's one that comes to mind when my son was maybe 12, and he forgot to take out the trash, and my ex yelled at him, like, did the attacked him. And I said later to him, I said, I think I said that it wasn't about the trash. It was about his choice to not remember to take out the trash.
Yes. And
he needed to choose, because that's important for whatever the reason was at the time. And so I can remember even at that time, and that was now 40 years ago, that it was like, oh, here's an opportunity to train for him, that life is, it's just trash. Does trash matter? Not really. But it is an opening, to your point, to have this discussion about making choices. Choose to do those things.
Yes.
Did I get that right, Doc?
You got it 100% right. And let me add one more piece of that. The piece of rebellion around not taking out the trash, like you said, it's not about the trash. I mean, it's a 30-second deal. The piece of rebellion is him saying, I am rebelling against being a contributing member to this family. And the response needs to be it's not about the trash, it's about making a choice. And you are a contributing member of this family, and that's what I expect. So get the trash out.
I appreciate that. You yes-anded me beautifully in it made me think of families are a team sport.
Exactly. Beautiful.
And everybody, we're all in this thing together, and there's the good, the bad, the ugly, and there's the trash, and there's the cleaning up stuff you don't want to clean up. And that's because that's what collective action is.
You bet. Well, and it's the way when things work well in the adult world, and you and I've experienced this like in person with each other. It's like one of us will start something and we'll just see what the other person's doing, and it's like, and the other person comes in and goes, oh, well, let me help you with that. And it might be something like super simple, like moving a table. Like you're trying to move a table, I'm standing there, it's like, oh, Mark's moving the table, let me get the other. And that it's happened with Traver and me, and with Michael and me, and in a little couple, in a month or so when we're all in Austin, it's going to happen that way. And it's like, it is being part of a team, and it is being part of something bigger than us. And that's also what it's a value that kids need to learn in adolescence. It's like, you get to be an individual. That's why I'm going to support you rebelling. And my boundary is still part of the team. Mm. And let me just, and you mentioned like the shootings and stuff. In the same way, when there's really major chaos and turmoil in families, it's like 90%, maybe more, of the reason for that is that the boundaries on the little things weren't set. Like the girl who came into my office with the hair, it's like, oh my God. And I did it. I mean, actually, she was very creative with her dress. And it's like, you look really, and there's a part of me that's going, you look really freaking cool. There's a part of me that's going, oh my God. And it's like, we work on the little things so we don't have to get to the big things.
Wow. Drop your mic. Work on the little things so you don't have to work on the big things. Dewey, that is a great button. And I want guys and gals, people who are listening, to kind of take that in and to turn on their watcher the next interaction they have that has some conflict associated with it. Someone's about to chip a piece off of your rock.
Right.
and understand if, oh, that's a chip that can go, or no, that's going to fuck the whole thing up. Don't do that. Mm-hmm. Right.
Totally. Yeah.
I love you, man.
Got it. I love you. This is fantastic. Thank you for, one of the things I love about working with you is how you pick out gems from previous conversations to come to now. That you do that really well.
Thank you.
So, thank you, sir.